Welcome to People, Places, and Things, a travel podcast that brings you captivating stories, fascinating people, and unforgettable destinations from all around the world. I'm your host, Ryan Lowe. Let's dive into this journey together. On today's episode, we have Racheli from Israel. Welcome, Racheli.
Hi, how are you?
Good. First, I want to talk about your upbringing, your past. How was growing up?
Start straight to the point. I was actually born in New York, and that's also where I've been the past year. And then when I was post high school, I ended up doing a year abroad in Israel and ended up living there pretty much my entire adult life.
Okay. So, how was that experience, that dynamic between growing up in New York? So, you're born originally from New York, lived in Israel, and some other places. You grew up in some other places as well. How was that? How was that dynamic?
Yeah, so I actually grew up Orthodox Jewish, which for some people is a beautiful way of life, but for me, I found it very intense. And my parents sent me to boarding school when I was 14, like a Jewish boarding school, which I could probably say is what inspired me to start traveling. I started moving around when I was very, very young. And I mean, if we want to go into personal detail, I was actually emancipated from my parents, which means I got divorced from them when I was young so I could have like legal autonomy over myself. And in the US, it's actually quite difficult. Even when you're emancipated, you still don't have a lot of rights. And I found it very difficult to lead a life that I wanted to in terms of work and renting apartments when I was young. And even though I was legally allowed to, it was still quite difficult. And so when I did my year abroad in Israel, I had grown up Jewish. And so it was, a place I had been before, I'd visited, I had family there. But their legal age is 18 as opposed to the US, which was 21. And so I found it quite easier to live a life of a free adult. Um, and yeah, it was a beautiful life. I spent most of my adult years in Tel Aviv on the beach, working in finance with a lot of other young internationals from all over the world. Um, and Yeah, I did my degree there. I have a degree in business and sport management and physical fitness. So it was a really, really beautiful life for a very long time.
That sounds like an incredible way to grow up, and a lot of like very independent, and that speaks to you today as far as how far you come as a solo traveler and just like just with everything you have and going on in your life, it's independent. Like we met in 2019 on the Mongol Rally. I seen you and your team in Junktown, in the Czech Republic, outside of Prague. But I don't think it was until I think it was the Altai region in Russia, which is it's a very like obscure part of Russia, like one of the like the mountainous region. I don't think it was until there until I had a conversation with you and your team. We got to because like that was almost the end of the rally. We were waiting to get into Mongolia, I believe. It was a long line on the border. Talk about your team and talk about your route. Like what inspired you to join the Mongol rally?
I was actually trying to figure out where we met, and I remember that day so clearly. Didn't someone get arrested inside the border because they peed in the fields with the yaks?
Uh, I I kind of remember something. I don't remember like who it would be or anything like that, but um yeah, speak on that because I do not remember. Do you remember kind of what went down?
I don't remember exactly what went down. I just remember we were waiting for hours. I really wish we had, compiled footage and video from everyone. Because I know that people were taking videos of us. We were like cooking on the border and everyone had to pee and it was just like this huge field with yaks. And so someone peed and then apparently there were like security. cameras somewhere. But if we're gonna backtrack a little bit, how did we even get to the Mongol Rally? So in 2019, this was when I had finished my degree, and I had been working. I worked really from 20 years old and only got my degree way later in life. And so I'd been working nonstop. I had been working during my degree as well. And I knew that when I finished my degree, I wanted to do a big trip. And I actually saw a Facebook ad that's like, oh, drive across the world, Mongol Rally. And I was like, I'm doing this. I don't care who's coming with me. We're going to figure it out. I ended up recruiting two girlfriends, which is crazy because in the 2019 Mongol Rally, out of 700 people, I think we were only 30 women. And out of the 100 teams, there were only two all girl teams. So that was pretty crazy. And as we approached the start line, as we approached the summer, I realized I was finishing up my 2-year rental contract on my apartment. I was finishing school. I was pretty much as high up as I was going to get in my job, and I had managed to save a lot of money. And so, about 2 months before the rally started, I just made the decision that I was not going to renew my contract. I sold most of my stuff, put the rest of it in storage. And I was like, I'm going to go on the rally and continue traveling, like whatever happens, happens. So that was pretty crazy. And you also asked me a little bit about my route. So I ended up doing the rally with a girlfriend of mine from Tel Aviv. I was running a girls community in Tel Aviv of international women. And so she was actually Canadian, and we would throw events in Tel Aviv and, do Shabbat dinners together and the holidays. So she was the first one that I recruited. And then the second person was a childhood friend of mine. And we actually decided to buy a car in Israel and ship it to Greece. And it ended up working out so beautifully. Everybody has their own experience on the rally. Some people buy a car in Europe, some people get sponsored in their cars, some people have daddy's money. And we really took this very seriously. We got tons of sponsors. We had our gas sponsored, we had a mechanic shop sponsor us. So we really learned how to work on the car. We had someone that helped us also like buy a car and make sure that it was a decent car that could make it across the world. And for those of you guys that don't know, the Mongol Rally, you have to have a car that's under 100 liter engine, a thousand liter engine. So it's we ended up getting a 2006 Fiat Panda. It was from a grandpa that had upgraded his car. It was in pretty good shape. Um, Yeah, we shipped the car to Greece in the beginning of July, I want to say, 2019. And me and one of the girls did an entire road trip through the Balkans. So we were in, I'm actually going to pull up my map if you want to
Yeah.
cut this part out.
No, no, that's fine.
So we shipped our car to Greece, and then we drove through Albania and then North Macedonia and then Kosovo. And then we went to Montenegro, Bosnia, and Croatia. And actually, from Montenegro, you have to go into Croatia and then into Bosnia and then back into Croatia. And then we went to, what country is this? Slovenia, and then Austria, and then Germany. And in Germany, I have some really good friends in Munich. So that's where we did like our last checks on the car and, maintenance and decorated our car. And then we met everyone in Czech, which was super fun. Um, how much more detail do you want?
No, I mean, that's good, and then, that led you to Junktown, I'm sure after Munich, you drove over there.
And then we went to Czechia and we went to Junktown and had that little festival that was crazy. And that started the Mongol Rally.
Yeah, that was crazy, right? They made a makeshift city, um, basically in the middle of nowhere, and it was
Yeah.
so cool. They had so many games and I mean, so much booze, of course, and all the food you could want and whatever. I mean, totally incredible setup. I mean, I couldn't have asked for more for a start to the rally. Like honestly,
Yeah, I don't think we had any idea what to expect. And I don't know what happened to you guys, but I don't have much memory of the day because what ended up happening is it started raining when we got in line to go in, and all the roads were flooded. So they couldn't let us go in. And we met a bunch of Russian guys and ended up getting trashed before we even made it inside. And then when we got inside, I don't know what happened. All I know is there's a picture of me and one of the girls asleep in the car at like 6 p.m. We woke up at midnight and partied till the morning and ended up crashing in some Australian guys' tents because we hadn't set ours up. And then in the morning, they're like waking everyone up to drive out. And we all look at each other and we're like, where is our car? It was such a dude, where's my car moment. And we had to do the walk of shame across the whole city until we found our car.
well, that's part of the like Jugtown. They want those stories, where like you all like meet new people and get like trashed. Honestly, it was I think 90% of the people that started like that day and drove out were hungover.
Oh, for sure. And I think that was also like just a testament to what our experience was going to be.
Yeah. So, did you make it to the party, the beach party in Romania?
Yes, I did.
See, we did not. We had a totally different route. But tell me about that. Tell me how that went down.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the route that we took. And obviously, all of us took different routes depending on our timeline, our preferences, and also like our visa availability. So we ended up driving out of Czech to Slovakia that evening, went to Hungary. We ended up just following a bunch of people. We also didn't know what to expect being solo women on the road. And although we had had a okay time in the Balkans, we did want to make sure that we weren't completely alone on the road. So we kind of just followed some people in the beginning. We drove through Hungary and then to Romania, and we made it to the beach party. Again, that is, I just, we were very drunk. I don't remember a lot. I do remember it being super fun. There was definitely some ocean action because I do remember having to go back in the morning and look for my dress. Um, and what I will say is there is this Israeli company called Tubi, and no one's really sure what they make their alcohol out of. Some say it's gut, which is a plant, I'm pretty sure from Yemen, which people eat to get high. And apparently, tubi is fermented gut, but no one really knows. Anyway, they sponsored us. So we were traveling. Now it's post rally, so I guess I can talk about it, but it's technically illegal. They gave us a case of 16 bottles of tubi that we were traveling with, and we were keeping it in the roof part of our car. We had this like little roof rack where we kept all our spare parts and our some of our food and our cooking supplies, and no one ever checked it. So just had these 16 bottles of tubi, that a very very strong alcohol. And that is what kept us fueled on the trip pretty much. And from Romania, yeah, so that was Romania.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you went through Bulgaria into Turkey, I believe.
Y- Yeah, so we went Bulgaria to Turkey. And then in Turkey, we actually ended up meeting Abokia, where we had our infamous, oh, what was it called? The Rose Valley race. Did you see that video?
I did not.
I will send it to you, but about, I think we were like 8 cars in the Rose Valley in Cappadocia, and we had a crazy race. And yeah, every car broke down by the end of the day. It was hilarious. And
That's
then from
awesome.
Turkey, yeah, 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 it was so epic. And then from Turkey, we went up to Georgia. And at this point, we had made quite a few friends with some of the other cars that were taking a similar route to us, which was quite nice. And obviously, depending on your car breaking down or whatever, it would also depend who we actually ended up meeting up with, because in Turkey, we started noticing that we kept overheating. And that was a main problem we had in the beginning. Like our car just kept overheating. And finally in Turkey, we took the car to get the cooling system flushed. And what we realized happened is part of what we did at Mechanic Shop is that even though in Israel he was sponsoring us, he would let us use his shop for free and his tools for free, but he didn't really help us. He'd like show us what we need to do and like supervise, but we did all the work. So I basically found an old um, Fiat that was missing the engine. So he let me take the cooling system parts because ours were rusted, and I changed it and he inspected it, but we didn't do a proper flush. And so the car just wasn't able to self cool. So finally in Turkey, we flushed the system and then the car was running more normally. And so that actually really helped because now we felt like we were able to keep up with everyone because we were literally breaking down on the side of the highway. Like I have stories for days, which is gonna need to be its own podcast to talk about the rally. But like we broke down the side of the road in Albania and got adopted by the mafia and then ended up getting arrested in Croatia because of that. Like crazy stuff happened to us.
Holy shit. Like your your rally experience was incredible. Um I think I had one of you on social media or something like that. I always try to get, follow people, follow teams, and like I was trying to meet as many people as I can to see what every way people were going and things like that, and cuz I'm super interested, like I'm just a curious person in general. Um but what do you think, you've had so many interesting moments, but what do you think is your most memorable moment on that rally?
Yeah, so I think once we got like you asked a little bit about the route. So we broke down 17 times in total. And so if we continue, I'll just continue the route and throw in some crazy experiences. So we did Georgia and Azerbaijan. So one of the cool things that happened in Azerbaijan is we had our Instagram on the stickered onto the back of our car. And we actually got contacted by this um, social lab and they interviewed us. They had us come in and speak to the team, and they had a lot of women, and they're trying to help women and help society like break stereotypes around like women's role in society. And that was really cool. So they brought us into the social lab and had us speak in front of everyone about our experience and being an all girls team. And then a lot of our friends went down through Iran to go to Turkmenistan, but because we had an Israeli car, we couldn't do that. And so we had to take the very infamous ferry from Azerbaijan to Turkmenistan. And in 2019, they had actually published a website where you could buy tickets for the boats. But that wasn't actually true because when we got to the port, they're like, no, that website isn't real. It's first come, first serve. And we had to go to the ticket office and buy our tickets. And then there were just no boats. Like, no boats showed up. And we ended up waiting at the port for 5 days. And we couldn't leave because then we would lose our spot. And then they told us there was one boat that was coming, and they didn't know how much room there was because it's a cargo ship. And so they have to give priority to the cargo and to the trucks and stuff. So they ended up letting five cars on the boat. It was an insane experience, and they told us that we only have 24 hours to make it to Turkmenistan, because if we don't make it to Turkmenistan in 24 hours, then Eid starts, or like I think it was Eid, something started, or there was like a conference, and so then they wouldn't process us out the port. And so what ended up happening was we got stuck in a crazy storm. It took us almost 48 hours to reach the port. And then when we reached Turkmenistan, they just had us docked outside the port for like another 5 days in the water. We were eating boiled chicken and kasha and like chicken broth because there was nothing. There was no food. It was just us and a bunch of truckers. It was the craziest of my life. Um, and then we had 5 days in Turkmenistan, ended up at a wedding there and getting escorted by police. That was also crazy. Went to Uzbekistan, which was pretty chill. The craziest thing that happened in Uzbekistan is we actually hit a really bad road, and we ended up breaking our radiator in our car. And what was crazy is we were actually traveling with a radiator because we knew that was the one part we would not be able to get when we were traveling. and we were having cooling system problems. So we're like, okay, we'll just take the radiator. And everyone made fun of us that we had this huge ass radiator on the top of our car and we hadn't used it. And we got to Uzbekistan, we actually needed it. So that was pretty crazy. And then we went to Tajikistan and we decided to take the route of the Pamir Mountain because we ended up bumping into a bunch of people that were doing it. So we're like, okay, we feel comfortable going on this crazy route. Um, Long story short, we took the wrong way to one of the campsites and ended up busting our engine, but we didn't know what we had broken. And all we knew is we couldn't get back past second gear. And everyone ended up ditching us. No one wanted to drive slow to be with us. And when I tell you, when you get to that like peak point, I think it's 5,000 meters in the air or something like that, the peak point of the mountains, and you cannot breathe. Like it feels like you're in a suffocation chamber and someone is smoking cigarettes in your face and you can't breathe. And our car could not get up the hill. And we literally had to get out and push it while one of the girls steered and like pumped the gas to try and get a little bit of fuel. That was crazy. And then we get to Osh, we get to Kyrgyzstan after the Pamir Mountains, and we finally find a mechanic. And he's like, "You broke 3 of your fuel injectors." And we're like, "How?" He's like, "I do not know how you drove 250 kilometers with one fuel injector and you couldn't go past second gear." And the problem was they didn't have fuel injectors, but they had an electrician who was able to like rewire the fuel injectors so he could reinstall the ones that we had. But it was going to take him like a day or two. And this is where another crazy story happens because then the mechanic, like the helper mechanic, like the sous chef, kind of spoke English. So he set us up in an apartment. He ended up like his mom owned a Russian banya bathhouse. So he ended up like taking us there after hours, which also almost turned a little weird, but it didn't. But you're like naked drinking beers in a bathhouse with this one guy. Anyway, it was all PG, don't worry. Yeah, and then in so Kyrgyzstan and then in Kazakhstan we busted both because the roads were so bad and we were on these like tiny ass car. We ended up busting both of our shocks. And I think the craziest thing is that in that part in Central Asia, you have masters. So you don't go to a mechanic shop and hope they can fix it. You go to the guy that specializes in shocks. And he literally took out our shocks and rebuilt them. He like pulls out a metal rod, measures like the diameter of our metal rod and our shocks, and then carves out new shocks and replaced it. It was crazy.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, it
But
was wild.
Kazakhstan needs that. I mean, the roads were horrible. I remember that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, all of our experiences, I would say most of my craziest experiences were um, because of mechanics. Like, I'm trying to think. I think it was Uzbekistan. We ended up getting stranded somewhere and like got taken in by a family. It was just like really beautiful. Like the hospitality of the mechanics in every single country was just unreal. I would say that that was our craziest experiences.
You, you three had had a crazy rally. Like that's some of the like you had the crazy some of the craziest stories on the rally, honestly. Um, so
Probably.
yeah, you know, you could say that arguably. So we ended in Mongolia or Ulan-Ude, Siberia. Ulaanbaatar used to be the ending point, but it was in Ulan-Ude in 2019. And then they had the podium set up and everything, and the party afterwards. What about after the rally? Post rally, what happened? Which way did you take?
Yeah, so post rally, they basically gave us the option that either you could they would transport well, one of the reasons they moved the final and finish line is because people are stranding their abandoning their cars, pardon. People were abandoning their cars in Mongolia and that was like a big no-no. So they changed the rules that either you pay them like 1,300 pounds and they transport your car for you and dispose of it, or you can drive out and you have to drive outside of Russia because you also can't leave it in Russia. So we realized we still had time One of the girls left, like the girl that wasn't with us in the beginning. She decided she only came for the rally. She was leaving, and me and my other friend were like, "Okay, we're gonna continue driving." We ended up driving 6,600 kilometers across all of Russia. Ended up losing our gearbox, but that's like another story. We got all the way to Estonia. That was a funny story because we got drunk in Estonia and woke up in Latvia. And then we went to Lithuania. It was a Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. So, and Lithuania has some of the oldest Jewish communities in the world. So that was really cool. We got to spend the New Year there with the Jewish community. And then went to Poland and Auschwitz also to see a little bit of the Jewish history, although the more somber uh, version of it. Poland, and then by this time it was already Oktoberfest. So we got invited back to Munich to my friend's house and went to Oktoberfest, went to go visit some friends in Switzerland and then some more friends in Paris. I was very lucky. I've been going to music festivals in Europe for a long time. So I have a lot of friends in Europe that were super happy to host us. It was just like really beautiful, and a lot of people really stepped up and were so generous with their places and their time. So we went to Paris, and then we had made a bunch of British friends on the rally, lots of Brits. So they invited us back to London, and we ended up being in London for 2 months.
Holy shit. So the
Yeah.
party did not stop for a
No,
while.
it was supposed to be a 2 month trip, and it turned into a 6 month trip.
That was our timeline. It was like 6 months. We were after that, I mean, it was I was done. 6 months of traveling was plenty for me. You know, I was ready to get back to my home.
Where did you guys go?
We went across so we went across the whole United States first, and then went from we started in London and went from London all of Western Europe. So like all we did like 2.5 months in Western Europe before we even started the rally. A-
Whoa.
And then yeah, it was a lot. And then the rally started, and then we ended up, just driving the southern route to Mongolia, and we did kind of the same thing. We had some troubles with the ferry to Turkmenistan. We didn't go through Iran, but um, yeah, some similar. But you had a lot more crazy experiences than we did. We had some mechanical issues, but nothing crazy. Um, but I mean, the rally was just amazing. Like that was one moment in my life. It was probably one of the best moments in my life. Like best travel experiences is just be able to be out there and be so just drive to wherever you want. Like these are the most remote parts of like Tajikistan, the Pamir Mountains, and like places that I would have never dreamed of going, and had access to it in like a car and be able to drive to all these places overland, through continents. I mean, it was such an incredible experience. Like, um, so after you got back to, did you come back to the U.S. after
No,
that?
no. I just want to go back for a second. Like, I agree with you. The Mongol Rally changed the trajectory of my entire life. I never experienced anything like that before. I never experienced anything like that again. I talk about it, even talking about it now, like makes me giddy. I feel like it was yesterday. I could tell stories forever, and it was just one of, yeah, the greatest experiences of my life. And everyone should
And I
do
meant,
it.
yeah, absolutely. And it's some of the countries aren't available right now. I know Azerbaijan is not available, and a couple others.
Um,
Um, they didn't do Mongolia either this past one, but I believe the 2025 one is going to be um, more like the 2019 one, is what they're saying. Who knows? It's
Also,
up to
how
the
lucky
countries.
were we? Like, we didn't
Super
know there was
lucky.
a pandemic. Like, can you believe that we got to do that? And then the world is like still not back to normal 5 years later.
That's incredible. Like, yeah, we had no idea. We just did it in 2019. We were just lucky to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, like the same. I met so many cool people um, on that rally. So many open-minded people that I would have never met otherwise. So I'm so thankful and so grateful that for that experience, and it definitely, like you said, changed my. It was a pivotal moment in my life, and definitely changed the trajectory of my life in a better way.
Yeah. And I think especially for me, one of the big things that I really want to touch on is like I had traveled before, but nothing like that. And it really just shows you the humanity of people. Like, you may not agree with a country's customs or bureaucracy or government, but at the end of the day, the average person is just a good human that is just trying to feed their family and care for their friends. And it really just opened my eyes on like how through food and through music and through just really love and kindness, you can to almost anyone in the world. Like we were in Turkmenistan, like there's no internet and we're dancing, sweating, or all got interviewed for a magazine or like a article somewhere that I have, and they were just so shocked that we were women driving. They're like, "Who's driving the car?" And we're like, "Oh, we take turns." And they're like, "Oh, but women don't drive, you know?" And so like, yeah, I think treating women that way is crazy, but I'm not going to judge the women living there that have never known something else, and they were also just so in awe of what we were doing. And so I just think it's so important for people. I think while traveling is a privilege, it's also so important just to be able to see humanity. And also, as a girl, like I never felt more safe. And to the other side, people always ask me. I feel like that's a big question people ask me. I know you didn't ask me, but I think a lot of times at borders and stuff, the guys would get their cars ransacked and they'd be looking for, I don't know, contrabands or whatever the case was. And when they saw three girls pull up, they were mostly just like shocked that three women were driving through whatever, Azerbaijan, that they never checked us. So like people were even giving us stuff to hide in our car because we never got checked. I don't know. I I don't I can't think of one instance that I really felt unsafe. The only time was when we were going into Mongolia, but that was like a scam artist on the border and they were scamming everyone and it wasn't because we were women. But besides for that, or and we almost got shot at by Afghanistan because we slept in the too close to the border. But again, that wasn't because we were women. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a lot of people, yeah, that it takes a lot of guts to do that, like form an all-woman team and go across the world with all the propaganda people been fed. And but like you said, most people, the average person is good-hearted, and just wants to be most of the time left alone and be a part of a good community, and take care of their family and friends. And it's good that you were able to shed some light around the world, like, hey, people can do this. People are doing this, and the world is bigger than just your area and just your community. And people are a product of their environments, you know,
100%.
the, and you gotta, and people that you met, I mean, you changed their minds a little bit. I think some of the women you met along the way that you talked to, and they were like, wow, that's possible, and yeah, it's definitely possible um, to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Did you what was the weirdest thing you ate along the
Ooh.
way?
Well, I will tell you, I remember clearly one of the best things I ate was the street plov in Uzbekistan. Like, Uzbekistan had some of the best food, or maybe we just found.
And they're so hospitable.
Yeah, yeah, for real. And the weirdest thing, we had camel milk in Turkmenistan. It was the most, in my opinion, okay? Nobody can get offended. It was so disgusting. And then, also, yeah, so camel milk in Turkmenistan. The guys came back from Iran with these like fermented cheesecake little puff thingies that I also think were camel milk. It was just like I did not enjoy it. And we tried horse in Mongolia, The food in Mongolia, in my opinion, was some of the worst food I've ever had in the whole entire world. We had when we were like in the yurts and in the fields driving across Mongolia, we were eating a lot of like dried meat. I don't know. And then really gross. And then the horse we tried. Yeah, I think that was probably the weirdest food.
No, I mean there was so many things, especially so yeah, like you said, like Central Asia and Mongolia. Mongolia had some. I'm trying to think because I remember us being. Were we in the yurt? I think we were in. I'm trying to pull up my album real quick because um, let me see. I have a picture of this yurt. Actually, I have a video of this yurt. I think we were in the same yurt. Yes, we were. I got the. So I got the video from the yurt. It's my team. It's like three teams, I believe.
In Mongolia. When
Yeah,
when
we.
they tried to force us to sleep there?
Yep. See, I see you. Yep.
Wait, why do I not remember you being there? I only remember the British boys being there.
Nope. There was three teams
Oh my
there.
god, can you
Yep.
please send it to me? Send me the video.
Absolutely. I'm gonna send you this video,
Yeah,
and I
that
got
was
a
a
pic. I got
they
a
tried
picture
to
of you and a
do you
picture of your teammate.
they stole our passports and they pretended to be the police patrol and told us we need like a special visa and they took away our passports and really they were scam artists. And then this guy came on a motorcycle to save us and took us to
Yep.
his yurt. And then really that was another scam so that they could force us to stay overnight. They were trying to charge us like hundreds of dollars.
Yep. Yep.
Oh
That's
my god.
exactly what it was.
That was a crazy day.
And then I don't know if you remember this, but my friend wrecked the motorcycle and flipped off of it, front flipped off of it. One of my teammates. He hit a bump.
No,
They let him ride the motorcycle around, and he hit a bump and just front flipped off of it and flew like I don't know 20 yards
I do not remember that.
and hurt his shoulder.
Wow, I have such selective memory, I feel like. It's so wild.
But the British team was there too. You could see them. We were eating. They cooked us some kind of meal, and we were all sitting around the yurt on the outside of the yurt.
Yeah, with the little girl.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow, good memory.
That yeah. I just remembered it when you said something about the yurt. I was like, I think that we were all in that yurt together, and I have pictures and videos.
Great, you'll have to send that to me.
That's awesome. But um, so you've done more with the adventurous though. So you're currently in Morocco and you just did the monkey run, right? Where you take a little bike across the Sahara in Marrakesh.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I love the adventurous so much. I wanna work with them. Dream job. And they're basically just psychos that think of crazy adventures and then have you raise money for charity. So I signed up for this actually last year and I was supposed to do it in April and I couldn't. But I finally joined them in Morocco. We had a 50cc monkey bike. Literally, it looks like a child's toy. Okay. And we rode it from Merzouga, which is super East Sahara Desert in Morocco, all the way west until Marrakesh, which is one of the main cities here. It was wild.
I can only imagine. So how did you come about that? And then like how did you prepare for that? And what was kind of your experience along the way? And um, tell me about your team and everything.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I signed up last October. I like to do a crazy adventure pretty much since I won on the rally. Every single year for my birthday, I'll do an adventure to raise money for charity. So last year, for example, I kayaked along the coast of Bali, 13 kilometers in a kayak to raise money for girls that need to go to school. The year before, I did the gentleman's oh my god, now the gentleman's ride. It's an international ride where basically custom bikes will drive together and you dress up like a dapper gentleman. You raise money for men's mental health and prostate cancer. So every year I like to do something. This year I got really sick and I wanted to raise money for endometriosis foundation. And if you want to go into that, we can go into that a little bit more after. And so I signed up in October. I ended up having my surgery in February and they told me I'd be back on my feet in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect, because I signed up for the motorcycle ride in April. But even as February approached, I like hadn't done any planning. I was so ill. And April came and I was still in bed. And so I messaged Adventurous and they actually let me change it to the October. um, so a couple things that I did to prepare. I got my license in New York because I had my license from Israel, but I needed a New York license. Also got an international driving license. I reached out to a lot of companies. I was really hoping to create much more awareness around endometriosis and the ride. Um, and on the rally, we had a lot of success and we got a lot of sponsors. Unfortunately, I didn't get that many. All my gear was sponsored by an awesome group in New York called Street Riders, and they have an amazing foundation called the Ride Again Foundation. And they do track racing, and they also, their foundation basically gives opportunity to people that have been in motorcycle accidents, and especially if they have an injury like they lost a leg, they lost an arm, or they have like any other physical injury, to help them get rehabilitated and back on a bike. And they create like custom gear for them if they have any, missing limbs, and they also customize their bikes so that they can ride again. Anyway, they're super cool. They sponsored all my gear, gloves, helmet, jacket. And then I also got a riding backpack from Viking Bags. And I hustled all my friends and a lot of my communities, and we raised $4,500, which is super exciting. And I'm really proud of myself.
That's
And then I was
awesome.
also, yeah. And then I was a little nervous, like how my body would fare. So I was doing, some training just to get strong enough to feel good sitting on a motorcycle all day. And yeah, I didn't plan anything because the adventurous don't like when you do. And so I pretty much booked my flight to Morocco, made sure I had some gear according to their minimal packing list. When I asked in the group like what route people were doing, obviously no one was helpful and they just make fun of you because that's who they are. And it's all in good spirit, but it's annoying. And yeah, at the start line, I was going around talking. I spoke to, I'm pretty sure, every single person. And it was super intimidating. And I was super scared because I was literally on my own. And I walk into this room and there were 77 guys and one girl.
It's a
So
common
that
theme on these
was
adventures.
it. It seems like it. And I actually had a big conversation with them about it. I was like, what do you guys need to do in your marketing to show women? Like, I have spoken to other companies that do women's motorcycle rides around the world. I have tons of friends that are adventure travelers. Like, what are you guys doing wrong in your marketing that is not attracting women to do this? Like, why am I the only girl here? And the other girl was a British girl. Well, she was Aussie living in England, something like that. And she had a team of like coworkers. So she was like good to go, but I was on my own. And to be honest, I didn't have such a good experience walking through the streets alone in Marrakesh when I first landed. Now I feel more confident in the country, but when I first landed, I was like being followed a lot. It was just not that pleasant. And so I was a little nervous doing the ride by myself. And also, it's not like a car. Like, if you get stuck on the rally, then at least you have two other people you're with. Like, if I get stuck in the Atlas Mountains, I'm by myself, you know?
Hmm.
And so I went around talking to all, and it was like a whole thing because I was going to join one of the guys' groups, and then they decided last minute they wanted to do a boys' trip, which I totally get. Obviously, I wish they had told me earlier, but like, I get it. And we were literally at the start line. So like we had night before for beers in Marrakesh. Then the next day they drove us all down to Merzouga. And we had that night in Merzouga. Then the next day was prepping our bikes, which is when I thought I joined the team. And then the next morning at launch, they're like, we want a boys' trip. And so I'm like literally running around like, hey, can I join your team? Can I join your team? Can I join your team? Because it's chaos. I still didn't even like have a route planned. The only thing I had was like my bike. I had managed to convince um I did use the, oh, I'm a poor girl by myself to get some help. So like some of the local guys that were working for the adventurers helped me build my like little bike rack for my bags, which was super nice of them. And people were trying to be super helpful. Like even the hotel ended up giving me my own suite because I'm an unmarried woman. I can't stay with any of the guys, and it ended up being way more awesome. Anyway, I'm going on 100 tangents here. I'm sorry. Um, but there were three other guys that were also solo, and I saw them right at the start line. I was like, "Hey guys, so I'm also solo. Can I join you guys?" And I ended up joining them. And Dermont is Irish, and Bruce was American, and Sean was Canadian. And it ended up being the most awesome little foursome. We each had our own role. Sean was the mechanic. He does a shit ton of biking. He has an adventure cruiser and a Harley, and he does motocross. So he was fixing all of our bikes, which actually we ended up only going to one mechanic the whole time. Bruce was like the dad of the group, um, making sure like everyone was taken care of, putting down money for people, and kind of just like taking care of that. And Dermont actually spoke French, which was super helpful because majority of Morocco speaks French as well. So that was super nice and made it much easier to get around. And that was our little crew. Did I tell you about the route we took?
Yeah, that's an awesome little crew. I mean, and it's cool you got that together right before the starting, the launch.
I know. I
It's
mean,
incredible.
it seems to be a theme in my life that everything goes absolute haywire, and then I'm just like, okay, we have 3 seconds to cry, and then we have to figure this out.
But that speaks on your resilience and independence.
But then it always ends up working out better than I could expected. And you also said that in the beginning, like the independence and resilience, and it doesn't come without its hardship. In order to be able to take all these adventures and to live a life of freedom, it's because I have been through so much shit and been through the ringer. And I'm like, if I don't make my life good, then I'm just going to be sad all the time. And also, I think when you experience real sadness, then the joy and the highs are way higher.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Yeah. But to go back to the monkey run, I want to make another comment that every woman should join. It actually is a great way to motorcycle a place like, I mean, they have trips in Peru and Mongolia and Morocco, and it's a super fun way to do a motorcycle trip with a group, especially if you don't feel that confident motorcycling by yourself as a woman. And what I was really shocked was I was actually a little concerned about the guys, like if I was going to feel safe with 77 guys. And everyone was so respectful. Like, I don't know, I'm sure there was a little bit of locker talk when like locker room talk, whatever it's called, when I wasn't around. But I felt like everyone was treating me like an equal, like a friend. I was able to joke. I was able to have fun. I was able to be silly. I was able to be upset. I was able to express my opinion. I felt empowered also like within my group to contribute what my skills were. Like I ended up doing a lot of the organizing and the planning and the booking and like vibes. I brought the snacks. And yeah, that was just a really, really nice experience for me, even though it was terrifying to be alone. And I'm happy I ended up joining them because like there's no I don't know. I could have probably done it by myself, but I would not have enjoyed it. There were like days where we didn't even pass through another town and you're just riding these terrifying roads in the mountains and there's not another town for days.
Yeah, that would have been a different dynamic doing it solo. And you found a team and they were good. So, was there any challenging moments that you had mechanically with the bike, or
Yeah, so we left Mirzuga and you had to drive like 30 minutes through the sand dunes in order to get to the main road. And I wiped out, so that was pretty challenging. I ended up getting more beat up than the bike though. Um, we drove through the mountains and I kept having like gear issues, but I think that was also just it took some time learning how to maneuver the gears so you actually get a little bit of speed. But like I don't think there was any time we were going more than 50 kilometers an hour. Towards the end of the trip, I think because we had a lot of rain the first 2 days, I think just between the rain, the mud, and then the dust after, and then altitude, on like day 5, my starter wasn't really working, and so I couldn't and I didn't have a neutral. Also my lights weren't working, but then we found out it was just like a bad switch. But yeah, I got really lucky. Like some of the teams were sending pictures in the group chat that they were doing like miles in the back of some sort of van because their bikes were like so broken. But really, I have a lot of gratitude to Sean because some of the guys on our team were having like a lot of carburetor issues or piston issues. Um, and he would take it upon himself every morning for like an hour to just like check all the bikes and make sure everything was good. So that definitely saved us. And yeah, our one experience that we really needed a mechanic was we were in Demnat, which is a random nothing town in the top of the Atlas Mountains. And one of the guys' bikes wouldn't start. And we really wanted to get an early ride. It was like we got up at like 6:30. It's like 7 a.m. And we told the hotel we were getting up early, or like it wasn't even a hotel, it was like a little guest house jail situation. He gets up early, we get our bikes, the bike's not starting. He's like, well, the mechanic doesn't come in until 9:30. And next thing we know, at like 8:15, the mechanic shows up to the hotel in his pajamas to help us fix the bike, which is so nice. And the hotel owner owned the cafe next door, so he opened early to make us all tea. And really just like the tea culture and the hospitality culture in Morocco is just unmatched. Like I've never experienced anything like this. Like everywhere you go, they're just offering you tea, sitting you down, so helpful, just so nice. Obviously in the big cities, especially in the coastal cities, Rabat, Casablanca, or even Marrakesh, it's going to be a little bit different. But when we were driving through the mountains and the desert and just stopping in like smaller cities and towns, everyone was so amazing.
that's awesome. And usually it's more like that than the opposite and what people tell you it is, and you would think it would be different, religion involved, but it's not. It's I've never been to Morocco, but everyone that's been there says the same thing that you do.
Yeah. And totally. And I think I think it's similar to the rally when you go for a local experience and you're really making an effort with the local community and you're not just in tourist areas. When you're in tourist areas, I mean, like even New York, you go to New York. I live in New York, or I've been living in New York the last year, and I barely go through Times Square. You're just going to get harassed, and people are running after you, and you're getting upcharged on everything, and people are trying to sell you stuff. So when you're in big cities, you're going to unfortunately have a similar experience where, I understand why people might have a bad experience in big cities. But in the smaller areas or whatever, that really was not our experience. Also, the in the Sahara, they're Berbers or Amazigh, and it's a bit of a. I don't want to speak into it too much because I don't understand everything about it, but yeah, it's a little bit different down there.
That's awesome. So you're currently in Morocco and staying there for a longer period of time, kind of exploring and kind of getting a more local experience. Talk about your next steps there.
Yeah, I am in Morocco. So after the monkey run, I ended up deciding to extend my stay. I did a road trip in a car. which was really nice. I did a 2-week road trip to some of the farther cities so that I could actually go visit them in a timely manner, which was super pleasant. Ironically, some of the um, mountain roads were actually easier on a bike, but it was so nice having a car. And then now, actually, I'm getting my yoga teacher training. I'm doing the course online. So I've decided to stay with a family here. They actually work in the international school. So I'm staying with them while I finish my course. And then I'm going to go to the north to do some content and marketing consulting for a farm near Chefchaouen, which is super exciting. I actually found them through Workaway, which, if people don't know, is a great way to travel and stay in really cool places and do a little bit of work in exchange for accommodation and food. So, like, I could have gone to Agadir and worked at a surf hostel, and helped with like front desk and then get free surf lessons and a place to stay. That was an option, you know? But I chose to go to the farm. I'm really excited for a little bit of nature. And then, yeah. Should I talk a little bit about the charity?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on, like, we will be putting the Adventurist link below, and Workaway and any other resource you need to help facilitate some travel as well.
Of course. Cool. Yeah. I'll send that all over to you. I have an
Awesome.
affiliate for Workaway. um, Yeah. Oh, also, yeah, we can go into the links after, but I also used Safety Wings, which is they have an add-on for adventures, and it was like $66 for the month, which is super cool. And it's a great travel insurance. Anyway.
Perfect.
Um,
Perfect.
so yeah, so one of the basically how the adventurists work, for people that don't know, you do a crazy adventure. The planning is up to you. They plan the start line, finish line. Everything else is up to you. But the cool thing is they help facilitate the group. So you're usually also meeting other people on the way, which is super cool, in addition to having the adventure, and you have to raise money. So you have to donate £500 to Cool Earth, which in itself is a great organization which helps with reforestation in South America, which I absolutely love their initiative and what they're all about. And then, just like the rally, I chose also a organization that is super close to my heart, um, which is the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Now, how did I even hear about them, get involved with them? Well, I actually got started getting really sick in the beginning of 2021. And if I can say conspiracy theory, I have research to prove that it was probably triggered because of the COVID vaccine, but it's my life now. And I started getting really sick. I was in hospitals. I mean, in 2021, I was in Bali. I ended up in a hospital. I ended up in a hospital in Egypt. In Israel, I ended up in a hospital. Like, I didn't know what was going on with my body. It felt like my appendix kept exploding. Like, it was just like insane pelvic pain. And all my lab work came back clean. And I was doing MRIs, CT scans, everything was coming back clean. And then it just became unbearable. I ended up going back to Bali last year because I was running a festival there. Sorry, I'm just like in the timeline in my head. And then I ended up getting in touch with some people that had found a specialist in New York for pelvic pain. And when I went to go see him, he's like, I think you have endometriosis. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And basically, it's when the endometrium lining, which is inside your uterus, when the cells start growing outside of your uterus on your pelvis. I mean, they have found it in people's legs and people's lungs. Like, if you don't catch it fast enough, it just spreads all over the internal cavity of your body. And so he thought that these cells were now basically growing all over my pelvis and like abdomen cavity. And There's no real way to test it. There's no research done around women's health in general. Like, I don't know if you know this, but even pharmaceutical companies, like on the back of a pill, even on Advil, where it says like for an adult, take two, blah, blah, blah. Like it does, they do no testing on women. They do not take into account a woman's menstrual cycle. So like your hormones and all your levels are different at different weeks of your cycle. And so there's just no research done about it. He's like, I can't even do a biopsy or any sort of test, and we don't want to do exploratory surgery. So we're going to go in and do surgery. It could be an hour, it could be 8 hours. And whatever we find, we're going to send for a biopsy. So it ended up being 2 hours, and they found a ton of endometriosis and got it tested, and it was, but nobody, like, even though I had done research, didn't really know anything about it. And only after my surgery, I ended up going to an event called the Patient Symposium, which the EndoFound puts on in New York. And they bring tons of specialists that speak about different research that they're doing and different tests that they're doing. And they had nutritionists come and speak to us, and Chinese medicine practitioners, and um, tons of different healing modalities that help women that are suffering with this, because it affects 1 in 10 women. And yeah, I very quickly just started talking to people there, got myself into the community. Um, I have been to many events with them. I also was helping them. They had a team running for the marathon. So I was helping the team plan for the marathon. And while they were all opening their fundraising campaigns for the marathon, I opened it for, um, yeah, for my motorcycle ride, because they don't get any research. And to this day, we have no idea why endo happens or how to cure it. Right now, the only thing that's possible for women that are suffering is to do surgery and cut out the parts that are infected and hope that it doesn't grow back. So yeah, that's why I raised money. I really like didn't even think I'd be able to do the ride. I was in bed for months after surgery. It took me forever to recover. I'm still not recovered, but I'm really happy that I got healthy enough to pull through. And, the adrenaline helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, I didn't even know anything about that, so it's good that you shed light on that, and maybe someone else is suffering from that, and get some insight into that, and it gets some funding for more research. And it's crazy you're
Yeah.
able to do that rally on that little Honda 50cc. That, I mean, you're getting bounced around in the mountains
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's exciting. I mean, there's something new every day, and like you said, adrenaline keeps you going. Um,
Yeah. Also, I mean, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but um it helped. Like, it gets worse depending where you are in your cycle. So I literally, the day that we drove to Mirzuga, I started my period, which is the worst. I don't know if this is TMI, but that's when like it absolutely attacks my body. And then so like once we started the ride, I actually was feeling way better, and like it couldn't have worked out better timing wise, you know what I mean? So I got really lucky. But like that's a reality of my life. Like I need to plan out my life around my cycle now, because that will dictate my energy levels and my pain.
well, yeah, I mean, uh, that's insane that that people, everyone has their own issues to deal with, and that is so very, niche, and it's so crazy to hear about, um and hear about something like that. Like most people don't have an idea about that. Like, and
Yeah.
it's still in its
I mean,
infancy of like
just doctors.
research, and
Even doctors don't know about it. Like I was gaslit for years, you know?
because they didn't have a clue. They didn't they
Yeah.
didn't have a clue what was going on, so they're just trying to figure, like, give you something that they've seen in the past.
Yeah.
Um so I want to talk about what's another adventure. Do you have another plan with the adventurist, or do you have something that you really are looking forward to in the future as far as like a big adventure?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this a lot. Um I mean, a little bit before the call, we spoke about that the past couple years I've been in digital marketing and traveling a lot. So I do have the little adventurous license, and the only trip I haven't done is the rickshaw run, which I'm dying to do, but I need to build a team first. So we'll see how that works out. But in the meanwhile, coming up for 2025, which is crazy to say, I'm hoping to really start sharing more of my travel story, talk about it and vlog about it and create content to really, inspire people and women to take the leap and have their own adventure. Um, and yeah, I've been talking to a couple of friends and talking to you as well. I'm hoping to run retreats in 2025, adventure retreats. But in terms of travels coming up, I'm hoping to go see the Grand Prix, the F1 race in Saudi for my birthday in April. I've become a crazy F1 fan. And then in the summer, I have a wedding in Hungary and a wedding in Bali, and I still have all my stuff there. So I'm really excited to go back to Bali and get everything. But right now, we're just trying to be present and live in the moment, live day by day. Do you have any
Yeah, and
exciting adventures that you recommend?
um, I love Asia, so I'm going back there in the spring for a couple months. But um, the adventurous is one of the best ways to do it because they help facilitate a lot of different things and they get a lot of people together. That's the main thing is getting a group of people, like-minded people together.
Yeah.
And and it's important to inspire more people to do this. This is one of the goals of the podcast. I'm like, especially for women and people that don't have the wherewithal. Maybe they tune into this and because like I come from nothing, and like many of us, like I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't start traveling until 25, and it just changed my life for the better. And I hope more people are inspired, especially people that don't have many resources and don't have these things and don't have ways, but there's so many ways to do it. Working seasonally, work away. There's so many resources out there for people if you want to travel and you're young and you're curious about the world.
Yeah, and I mean, even to this day, I'm constantly flooded with new resources or meeting people that introduce me to new things. Because again, it depends on where you come from, what your culture was, and what you're exposed to, exactly like you said. And there's so many options. But in addition to like all the exchanges that you could do or seasonal work, you asked me like, why am I staying in Morocco? Because to rent a place, go out to eat, go on adventures, cook at home, whatever I decide to do, I can spend under 1,000 a month if I live like the locals and I live with the locals. And so not only am I getting a really beautiful and cool experience, but like in New York, I step out of my house and I'm spending, $1,500. And so, especially for people in the US that are asking me, like, how do you travel so much? And it's like, I don't know, guys. Like, I feel like traveling is literally cheaper than living in most big cities in the US.
Yeah, and a lot of people get themselves into a lot of bills. That's the thing about the US. People get themselves into credit card debt, into big car notes or big rent payments and long leases, and lock themselves into a city and a career that is location based. You have to be in that location and go into an office or something like that, and what and travel a couple weeks a year because the U.S. does not have a big travel culture, especially internationally. We just don't and I want to shed some light and see let people see the possibilities. I mean, and the world is so much more vast than the US. Yes, there's a lot of different landscapes, a lot of different places in the US you can travel to. I agree with that. I've been all over the US. It's beautiful. Yet there's so much more to see as far as like culture and old history and food, music, whatever it may be. there's these parts of the world that you I would highly implore people to go out and explore. I mean,
100%. And we've been to some places that, like, people don't go to. Like, the amount of people that could be like, "I've been to Turkmenistan," like, who can say that?
that's true. What a weird country, right? That was
Yeah.
so weird, like, beyond odd, like, the secret police sometimes, like, you get followed and
Yeah,
just, like, there's blacked out parts of the countries you can't explore and, like, you
yeah.
gotta stick to a route, and,
But
um
even in that, like, yeah, even in that, really just meeting the people, and you learn so much about yourself. You grow as yourself. And to add, like you said, like, this should be an inspiration. Like, I think a lot of people look at me and the way I live my life and think I'm batshit crazy and or irresponsible or not realistic or whatever the case is. And I understand that my lifestyle isn't for everyone. And not everyone wants to travel full time and not everyone wants to have job insecurity, as some people call it, whatever the case is. And I totally respect that. Like, some people love having their space and their home and their jobs and love knowing that they have that. But like you said, even just, taking the step to go get a passport and kind of look at what going outside of the country might look like. I found a flight to Morocco. I think my flight was like $300 with bags. And then you
wow.
get here, yeah. One way though, one way. And
Still.
then you get here and, like, yeah, obviously, like, last night I went out to dinner with friends and, like, the meals were 35, $40 and the drinks were $20. Like, you can have that experience if you want to. But if you're gonna go at a local place, you can get a glass of wine for, well, they don't actually have a lot of alcohol here, but you can get, a meal for $2, $3. You can rent a place for, a small amount of money as well. And you can have these really beautiful experiences instead of flying to Mexico and spending $500 a night on an all inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, that 500 will get you way farther in Morocco.
Exactly, and that's kinda the point is and like you said, I respect anyone's decision. A lot of people get into families early, have kids and what have you, and want that safeness. Even if they don't have kids, they want that home and home base, and that's totally respectable. And like whatever you want to do, what I'm saying, and I think you're saying, is just get out of your comfort zone. Just get that passport, get out of your comfort zone, and just try a new place. Because I know a lot of people just go to the same place, go to the same beach, or like you said, Mexico to an all inclusive where it's comfortable, yes, but um, it's not
Which I've done
like
as well. Which I have
yeah,
done as well. You know?
and it's cool to do that, but just like switch it up, switch it up and just try new things. That's what life's about.
Yeah. I actually wrote down, like, if I were to inspire someone to travel, what would I say? And first of all, just like, the more you travel, the more confident you become. So some solo travelers might find Morocco a more intimidating country because, it's Middle Eastern culture. Like, the markets are quite hectic and can be aggressive. So, like, if you start doing small solo adventures to, I don't know, let's say a more European country or whatever, by the time you get to Morocco, like, it doesn't matter that I don't speak the language. It doesn't matter that I've never been here before. I get out of the airport, it's always the same, I can figure out where the taxis or the buses are. I can figure out how to change money. I can figure out how to get a SIM card. Like, it eventually becomes this, like, kind of routine that feels easy. Even when I went to China, like, at least in Morocco, I can, like, navigate with a little bit of French and a little bit of Arabic. But even when I went to China, like, I figured out how to take the bus and figured out how to do everything I needed to do. And the other thing I wrote down was follow the music. I find that to be hugely inspirational. I have ended up in some beautiful experiences and dance parties in Mexico or weddings in India or whatever the case is because I follow the music. And yeah, and the last thing is just, like, find the humanity. You attract what's the saying? Like, you attract what you project. So if you really just put your faith in humanity and that people are good and put out a good energy into the world, that's what you will be kind of showered with. I truly believe that. And that doesn't mean I haven't had any bad experiences or some scary experiences, but I really believe that overall, because I go into situations just expecting the best or hoping for the best, that's what I receive.
Yeah, and that's great advice. Just go into it with an open mind and be receptive to everything and following the music. That's a great I haven't heard that one before. So that is a good one and usually where the music is, especially if it's louder and then you can hear it from a distance, it is usually a party, you know, and usually people are having fun, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been, you know, I think we will wrap this up soon, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Riley.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for letting me blab. I love to. Give me a good edit. And
Yeah.
yeah, follow me on social media. My Instagram is Racheli A, so Racheliaye. I'll send you the link. And I hope that maybe we'll do the what's it called it together?
Yeah, the
Maybe
rickshaw run?
the rickshaw run.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll get all the links from you that you want to send and then we'll put them down below. No
Okay,
problem. Anything you want to plug in. That's fine with me.
amazing. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me. Any last questions?
No, that's pretty much it. You know, I appreciate you spending your time and we'll definitely do another podcast in the future. Future trips will whatever you want to talk about, and if you have something big coming up or whatever, feel free to reach out and we'll come back on and do another episode.
Perfect. Thank you for having me again. Have an amazing day.
Yeah, you too, Rayleigh. Thank you very much for coming on and spending your time.
Of course. Bye.
With that, folks, always remember the world is your oyster. That's a wrap on this episode of People, Places, and Things. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Whether you're dreaming of your next adventure or just love hearing stories from across the globe, we hope we inspired a bit of wanderlust in you today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with fellow travelers. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, keep discovering new people, places, and things.